The sun dipped low over the savannah, painting the sky in gold and fire. In the fading light, the village of Nkara seemed frozen in time. Red clay huts stood in circles, smoke rose lazily from wood fires, and goats shuffled through narrow pathways. Children's laughter echoed faintly, but it was muffled by something else: silence. The kind of silence that comes when people wait, when hearts search for something unseen. In the center of the village sat an old man named Baba Musa. He was bent from age, his beard long and white like the cotton that grew in the wild fields beyond the river. In his hut, perched on a wooden stool carved decades ago, sat a battered shortwave radio. Its once shiny knobs were rusted, its antenna patched with copper wire, and its wooden body scarred by the years. But it still breathed with life. To the villagers, Baba Musa's radio was more than just a device. It was a voice from the outside world. Long before television and smartphones, it carried whispers of freedom during the independence struggle. It sang the songs of Miriam Makeba and Fela Kuti. It cried with the news of wars in faraway lands and cheered with the roars of football matches that brought strangers together. For half a century, it had been the heartbeat of Nkara. But the new generation did not see it that way. They carried smartphones in their hands, their faces glowing at night from the light of TikTok videos and WhatsApp messages. To them, the old radio was nothing but a talking box, slow, crackling, unreliable. They laughed at Baba Musa when he sat in silence, turning the knob gently, waiting for the broadcaster's voice to pierce through the static. "Grandfather," one of them once teased, "why listen to that old crackling wood when the whole world is in our pockets?" Baba Musa only smiled, his eyes glistening. "Because, my son, sometimes the world hides in places you don't expect." Then came the day everything changed. It began with a silence heavier than usual. At first, the young people thought it was just poor network. They refreshed their phones, switched data on and off, restarted devices, even climbed to higher ground to catch a signal. But there was nothing. No internet, no messages, no calls, just emptiness. By evening, panic spread. Rumors ran wild. A coup in the capital, foreign, soldiers crossing the borders, maybe even an earthquake that had destroyed the cell towers. No one knew. In a world where information is survival, ignorance is fear. The villagers gathered in the square, restless, whispering. The elders looked to the young, and the young looked to their dead screens. But the screens said nothing. And then, like a slow drumbeat in the distance, came a familiar crackling sound. "Kersh! Kersh!" Baba Musa's radio. Children stopped mid-run. Women carrying water placed their calabashes on the ground. Men who had been arguing fell silent. One by one, feet shuffled toward the old hut. Soon the whole village stood outside, waiting. Inside, Baba Musa adjusted the antenna, his wrinkled hands steady despite the tension. He turned the knob carefully, the static hissing like a restless snake. Then, through the noise, a voice broke. "This is the National Service. Please stay calm. The situation is under control." The crowd outside gasped. For the first time in hours, they heard the world beyond their borders. The voice spoke of a military takeover in the capital, soldiers patrolling the streets, and a temporary shutdown of all internet and mobile services. It urged citizens to remain indoors and await further instructions. The villagers leaned closer, listening as though their lives depended on every syllable. Mothers hushed their babies, young men clenched their fists. The voice on the radio became their lifeline, carrying the pulse of a nation in turmoil. That night, no one mocked the talking box. Days passed. The internet remained dead, phones lifeless. But the radio spoke each evening, delivering news of curfews, peace talks, and the fragile balance of power. Every night, the villagers gathered in Baba Musa's hut, the air thick with sweat, fear, and hope. The glow of the oil lamp fell on their anxious faces as they waited for the voice from afar. The radio was no longer just Baba Musa's. It belonged to everyone. It told them when food trucks might arrive, when soldiers were moving, when danger was near. Without it, they would have been blind. Slowly, respect returned to Baba Musa. The young men who once laughed now sat at his feet, listening. The young women who once rolled their eyes now asked him to explain the history behind the crisis. and he told them stories of coups past, of how he once sat as a boy listening to the very same radio announce independence, how it cried with the voice of leaders who rose and fell. The radio was not just news, it was memory. One night, as the villagers huddled around, the broadcaster announced that the crisis was ending. Negotiations had succeeded. The soldiers would return to their barracks, and communications would soon be restored. Cheers erupted, tears flowed, and the people of Ankara embraced one another. The next morning, the young returned to their glowing screens. Laughter filled the air again as messages poured in, videos played, and memes circulated. The world resumed its rush, but something had changed. On the edge of the village, Baba Musa still sat with his radio, turning the knob gently, listening to the crackle. But now, he was never alone. Sometimes a boy would sit beside him, asking, "Grandfather, what did you hear today?" Sometimes a girl would lean in, whispering, "Tell us more about the old days." The radio had reminded them of something the internet could not: the power of shared silence, the weight of listening together, the wisdom of voices carried across time. And though the world moved forward, Ankara carried with it the memory of the night. The village gathered around the last radio, listening not just to news, but to each other and to history itself. In the heart of Africa, sometimes the loudest lessons are whispered through the oldest voices, and sometimes the future is hidden inside the crackle of the past.